Hello and welcome to the You've Got This Girl podcast, a space for celebrating all that we are as women, our struggles, our journeys, and our victories, sharing knowledge and inspiring stories of women accomplishing incredible things. I'm your host, Marilyn Brown, and my guest today is Tiffany Levy. Tiffany is a fitness professional, Navy veteran, Lululemon ambassador, and co-founder of Keepers of Khora, a nonprofit focused on mental health that strives to create spaces, experiences, and communities for people to be seen, heard, and understood. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Good.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for your service. And I wanted to ask if you could share a little bit about your career in the Navy and what led you to take that path of service.
Yeah, so I've started in fitness, and I think when COVID happened, everybody was like, "Oh my God, what do we do?" So prior to COVID actually rearing up and kicking off for real, I had wanted to join the Navy or the military in general, probably early in my 20s, but I had my daughter, so it really wasn't the time to do it. So COVID happening, I wanted to be an essential person to make sure that all of my family was taken care of. So I ended up joining the Navy end of or middle 2019, finished basic, and then as I was going into my A school and stuff like that, and COVID hit and everything pretty much shut down at all the bases. Family couldn't come visit or anything like that. So that was a shocker. I think just for everybody in general and just the military trying to figure it out. I loved my time in the military. I think it provided me some learning lessons and a little bit more discipline when it comes to certain aspects of my life. Coming out of the military, I did finish my degree in intelligence studies. So when I was in, I really focused on intelligence studies and loved that. So anything like, I think James Bond, espionage, along those lines, human intel, or like what is it, Mind Hunters on Netflix, like why do
Hmm.
serial killers do what they do? Like let me be that person to go interview them and
Okay.
try to profile and catch them. So my degree and background is in that type of stuff, which segues perfectly into Keepers of Khora. Granted, not working with serial killers, but understanding people's feelings and why they do what they do, or further understanding that.
Makes sense. And so, what would you say are some of the most important lessons that you learned during your time in the Navy that have made an impact in your life after getting out of
Um,
service?
I would say number one, definitely value the time that you get to have with your family in person. Assuming that COVID wasn't going to be that bad and that I'd be able to see my family post graduation and everything like that, and then them just shutting down everything and not seeing them for months on end was a struggle for me and for my family as well. Secondly, discipline. So having a schedule, yes, life happens, but always reverting back to having that schedule, I think really helps people stay on track with what their goals are or trying to achieve their goals and making progress and moving forward. My mom jokes with my dad and I, because my dad was in the military as well. He was a merchant marine, that you could set your clocks to us. Like, we're going to be up by this time. You could count on me being in the gym between 8:30 and 9:15 a.m. every single morning, to the point where people are like, if I'm not there, you sick? Are you okay? Are you taking a rest day? Or if I'm there later, like, what are you doing here? And then, from X amount of time to X amount of time, I'm here. So I think that discipline really helps moving forward in life and just anything that you set your mind to. And then lastly, understanding and learning how to maneuver in, we'll call it like the corporate game, because the military is pretty much a big corporation. I mean, you still have your higher ups, so your commanding officers, which are equivalent to CEOs and so on and so forth. So understanding what your job and your role is, respecting the hierarchy and moving within that system the best that you can to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said really resonated with me. It's like I mean, I had a similar experience from being an athlete in college to coming out into the world after school, and that discipline really becomes so important because like when I was an athlete, we had specific time and was
Yep.
planned into our day, like show up here, lift here, practice here.
Yep.
But then once I came out into like the real world, I had to maintain that discipline myself. Nobody
Yep.
was baking workouts into my day. No, especially, having kids and stuff. It's like
Hmm.
nobody was going to make me show up for those things if I didn't choose to show up for myself in that moment. And so that concept of the discipline, I feel like it's even, after you're in that setting where the discipline is sort of kind of put on you, then when you're kind of out on your own to be able to continue that is something that's a skill, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's challenging. I mean, I have my days where I'm like, but I know even if you have those couple of days, you always kind of revert back to what you know, what you're comfortable with. And I'm a very like consistent, scheduled person.
Yeah. And what you mentioned as well, as far as, maneuvering within the corporate world, especially, I feel like as a woman, an important skill to be able to read those situations and be able to see sort of the writing on the wall and put yourself in a position where you're going to be able to take advantage of whatever opportunities open up for you.
Hmm. Yeah, the military, I miss it. I miss it. When I came home, I kind of looked up like, okay, what's the age cutoff that, if I wanted to go back in when my daughter's a little bit older, almost done with school, and it's 35, and I'm like, darn, we're not quite there yet. My parents were very much like, we're not going through that again with you, so you're gonna have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So, but it was good. Life lessons learned. I mean, it was a good experience.
can you share a little bit about your nonprofit Keepers of Khora and how your lived experience sort of led to what your mission is with that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So Keepers of Khora is a nonprofit focused on mental health. We strive to not make it feel like therapy. So we look for organic connections and experiences. So we put together these experiences, invite people, and when they come, we center it around the experience. So instead of it being like a name tag, like "Hi, my name's Tiffany, and I think I suffer from anxiety. Do you suffer from anxiety too?" It's more of we come together, we do an event, you get to see people's personalities organically and kind of cultivate that relationship first before us having a sit down meal and just having a conversation. So whether that conversation is I think the last men's event, the conversation topic was define what being a man means to you. So just understanding everybody's perspective and what that common denominator is for that. So we focus on creating those events and spaces and then continuing to cultivate that space. So the men have a group chat. Anybody that's attended an event is able to hop into that group chat. They do check-ins with each other. So it's just really, really understanding that you're not alone. You're seen, you're heard, you're understood, and you can come into that space whichever way you need to. So whether life's going through you, not you going through life, but life's going through you, or you're celebrating a happy moment. You're just having people that understand where you've been and where you've gone to, and they can celebrate that with you. So
Yeah.
I think my time in the Navy, especially being on the older side going in and dealing with a lot of 17, 18-year-olds who are fresh out of high school when I've been removed out of high school, we won't say how many years, X amount of years. And having a kid, I was able to bring a different perspective to we'll call them trials and tribulations of being in basic together. Going through being yelled at by your commanding officer and the unit division being punished as a whole and just understanding like, hey, this is the reason why it's this way, and then being able to bring that understanding and patience into Keepers of Khora. So my co-founder, he is actually the one that wanted to cultivate the space. He is the visionary and I am the executor. So he tells me what the vision is, and I'm the person like, okay, if you say go, like I'm running with it. And I was the same way in the military, and I'm the same way with a lot of things in my my life. If you say yeah, we're gonna do it, or if I say yes, I'm gonna do it, I've made my mind up, then I'm doing
Mhm.
it.
That's awesome. And it feels like, from everything you're describing, there's so much power in creating that space where there's no expectations of people, but at the same time, everybody knows that everybody else who's there is there for connection in one form or another.
Hmm.
And so just being able to feel the power of multiple people coming together in the space where they feel open, I think has got to be such a cool thing to witness.
It is. It's a great feeling, and granted, like, even though we've hosted a couple of men's events and we've done a dinner with Lululemon, the men's events, especially like seeing the men first come in, because I do a lot of the check-in and the administrative stuff, like, okay, boom, 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 you're all set.
Mhm.
But seeing them when they first come in and then post event, like it's night and day. I've connected with somebody in this space that now I have their contact information. If I need to reach to them, I can reach to them. Or if I need to reach to Tiffany and Dwayne, I can reach to them. And I have a lifeline to connect with. So it's big on connection. It's big on understanding or leaving the negativity outside, because we could bring a lot of baggage into that space, and like we're here to talk through it. But if you're not going to be open and receptive, then it's kind of hard to be in that space, because then you're looking at everybody like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? And
Yeah.
instead of listening and be like, oh, okay, so there's a different perspective, or there's a different perspective. I could tackle the same kind of situation this way instead of the way that I have been.
Yeah. And I feel I recognize the irony of me saying this, but I feel like in this digital world, it is so important to have those in-person connections.
Hmm.
And I feel like there's nothing like it. And so it's got to be so interesting, the energy of just having everybody in one room in this time when everything happens over chat, everything happens over, video, to actually have people like in a room together sharing their energy. I feel like there's almost something physical to it, I would imagine.
Yes, yes, for sure. And Dwayne could definitely speak to that because he soaks up a lot of that energy post event, and it's like a whoo
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. And I feel like it's interesting because, and this is something you and I are going to talk about later in the conversation, but, I feel like depending on someone's background, this might be the first time that they have somebody
Hmm.
open to listening, or they're entering a space where they feel like safe in sharing those emotions and those energies.
Definitely, for sure. And a lot of the feedback that we do get is thank you for not making it feel like therapy. I mean, it
Good.
is therapeutic to talk and to connect, but for it to not feel like a therapy session or
Good.
someone's talking at you about how you should feel or how you should view things, I think really sets us apart in what we're trying to do. And I think it's what makes us very successful and people more receptive to what we're trying to do.
Can you describe some of like the actual the events that you've done so far and any that you have coming up?
So we've done two men's events. So our first one was in October, and that's kind of what kicked off the whole Keepers of Khora thing. Dwayne came up with the idea where he wanted to get men together and talk about whether you're a millionaire or you're broke. Everybody still has the same issues. The variables are those things, whether the amount of money or whatever else. So getting a group of guys together. So we hosted a brunch with Posties, which is a networking company with my friend Barack, and he's all about making genuine connections as well. So it kind of just all lined up. So we did that event first at Wilson Hardware, and we had about 20 men show up, and they didn't know what to expect. I was like, don't tell anybody your name, like nothing. And so when they sat down and they had brunch and they had this organic conversation, it always takes one person to kind of crack open, and then everybody's like, word vomit. Like, I want to say everything and everything under the sun. So what was supposed to be an hour and a half event turned into more of like a 3.5 hour event, which is
Wow.
fantastic. Um, but that was our first one, and we're like, okay, we could do this. So we decided to actually create the nonprofit. And then our second event that we hosted for Keepers of Khora was our men's shooting event at XCal. So same couple new faces, but a good chunk of the people that came to the first one were here at the second one. So we had those relationships built. A lot of people were asking, oh, when's the next one? When's the next one? So we hosted that at XCal. The men did like 90 minutes of shooting, and then they had a dinner afterwards. And the topic of that discussion to discuss what it means to be a man. It was great because my dad got to attend. So um, I think having the different age groups in the room really opened up a lot of different perspectives on what it means. And that was our second official event. Our kind of halfsy event, we did a Black History Month dinner with Lululemon to celebrate the Black leaders in the community in the DMV at Dogon. So we co-hosted that event, and we let every Black leader that was invited to that dinner tell their story. A lot of it had common denominators. We're all in a place where we want to help people. We all are in a place where we want to feel seen, feel heard. And so that was a great experience. There was about 13 of us, so it was a very intimate dinner, but it was an opportunity to give these Black leaders their flowers and also host the conversations. When we were asked by Lululemon, I was like, oh, we're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. Sign us up. Um, and the upcoming events, we have partnered with, my family has another nonprofit called Christo's Ministry. I just got nonprofits everywhere. Um, and they focus on building schools in Jamaica and providing
Oh,
school supplies and education to kids in Jamaica since my dad is from there. And we have partnered with them to do some school supply drive stuff. And we're going down there in May to help them dedicate a couple of schools, see a site, and kind of figure out how we can be integrated more into that on an international level. So that's very exciting. So that's that. And then we have a women's event. Hopefully in June, we're going to do shooting for them. We had a lot of women like, okay, when's ours, when's ours? So we're trying to shoot for June. And our big ticket one is maybe a concert or a rave or like a black tie event towards the end of the year.
Very fun.
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff in the works. Of course, it's just time and patience and connecting with the right people and hoping that people see and appreciate what we're trying to do and the willingness of others to help us.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing you talk about it because I actually feel like there's some parallels between what you guys are doing and the types of things that I'm trying to accomplish with this platform because my whole thing with this is like there are commonalities in our lives regardless of what our backgrounds are that don't really come to light unless you ask questions and engage. And so it seems like your events would really bring a lot of that to light. It's like, doesn't matter where you're from, what your background, rich, poor, et cetera. Like you were saying, it's like there are certain things that bring us together and make us human and the threads of our stories, go from one to the other. It's like, it's
Right.
so cool.
Yep. Yep. And we spoke about this too. So that women's event, like, definitely would love to have you there because I feel like you could bring a whole nother layer and level to the conversation because this is what you do and this is where your passion lies as well.
I would love to be there. So another question I had for you is that, I had shared with you that one of my previous guests discussed the need to sometimes pivot professionally. And I think that it takes a lot of awareness and a lot of self inventory to be able to recognize when something's no longer for you and it's time to follow a new passion. And then that topic seemed to resonate with you. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yes. So I am a master pivoter. I learned early that if I don't like being somewhere, if there's a will, there's a way. I will make it work. From the fitness industry, learning how to pivot and finding what my niche was there, to COVID and pivoting and being in the Navy and figuring out how to maneuver in there, to coming out and then back to civilian life and being like, what do I do now? To even another pivot. Recently, I came completely out of the fitness industry and now I'm in a corporate job. So understanding what that looks like, but the need to do so because either my passion wasn't there or it wasn't serving its purpose or I wasn't able to give what I needed to give in that position. So I think being self-aware and understanding that and not settling. So granted, we all need to make a living. We need to provide for our family, but if there's a way to do it and be happy, you should absolutely do it. And I've always lived by that to the point where it drove my parents crazy for the longest time because they're like, "Why are you doing fitness? Why are you doing fitness? You have your degree. Like, what? Like, go into a corporate job. You don't have to hustle so hard." But my passion for 13 years was in fitness, in helping people, in being in those spaces. And then, life happens and it's just like one of those things like, okay, it's time to pivot again. Going into a different era of life. There's certain things I need to be able to accomplish and be able to provide for my family as my daughter gets older. So it's like, okay, so I was able to live in my passion. I was able to do this for 13 years. I could always come back to it, but now it's time to pivot and do what I need to do to make sure she's set up, to make sure she's ready to go. 17 years old, like, it's like, okay, we got colleges that we're starting to look at. Like, and fitness just isn't what it used to be. So it was time to pivot. Sometimes pivoting is hard. I'm not saying it's easy. There's been lots of times where I've been back and forth between a decision, knowing that I have to do it, but it's like, do I really have to? Can I like try to make this work a little bit longer? But there's always that one like sign or catalyst that you're just like, oh no, it's time. And like this is the universe kicking me off the ledge. Like it's time to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so much respect for that. My husband was a chef for a really long time and it was a
Mhm.
really grueling, industry to be in. And he had studied and become a personal trainer. And he never had such a big smile on his face as when he came home from training his clients. He would train them part time and stuff, but like he would come home and he would talk about some of the progress they would make, and he would just light up. And I'm like, dude, this is what you want to be doing. And
Mhm.
it was tough for him because he would tell me I spent 4 years getting a culinary degree, like I put all this work into it, and I was like, dude, just because you built the ship doesn't mean you have to go down on it. Like 40 years is a really long time to be miserable. If you're not liking what you're doing, that's going to be rough. So I have so much respect for people who have like even just the self-confidence to be able to say, no, this isn't for me anymore and I got to make a move, because it's like it's scary. You don't know necessarily definitively what that move is going to lead to, and it's easier to stay with the status quo and just be like, "Oh, well, I am doing this, so I'm going to continue to do this."
Right. And I think that's the part that gets a lot of people stuck. It's that fear of the unknown. Like, okay, if I make this move, it's already lined up. If I make this move and it doesn't work out, like then what? So, but I think a lot of it's just coming back to understanding you got to be present and make the best of what you can, which with what you got. Like that's really what it comes down to. And as you work through that, give it time for you to settle in. There's been jobs I've gone into and I'm like, first week I'm like, no, 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 no. And then after like a month, I'm like, okay, I think I could do this. I could work with this. So yeah, pivoting is definitely it's hard, but I think it also makes a person very resilient. And I think it takes a lot of perseverance to continue to self reflect, and really prioritize your health, your happiness over sometimes the dollar and sometimes just the stress that comes with being in those positions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a cultural shift that's happened, because it's like, in my parents' and your parents' generation, it's like my mom was with the same company for 30 years,
Yeah.
and like I feel like some of it comes down to the loyalty that those companies used to have for employees, which I just don't think is there anymore.
Mm-mm.
But part of it too is I think that like our generation expects more out of their experience, even when it comes to professionally. We want to learn, we want to grow. We don't want to just show up and punch a ticket, clock in, clock out. Like we want to gain something more out of that experience.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, it's great that you said, like, referring back to our parents. Like my dad was with a company for 20 years. Like he was that loyal employee, like punch in, punch out, whatever else. I definitely believe our generation, and even like our kids' generation, it's really down to the experience. What experience do I have when I go into the office? Which part of me is like, yes, you need that. The other part of me is like, you still gotta work.
Mhm.
Every experience is not
Yeah.
going to be a wonderful experience,
Mhm.
but you still have to learn how to work through those days and work through
Yeah.
those experiences.
Yeah. And so you mentioned your daughter during our discussions. You mentioned that you didn't really grow up in a household where emotions were discussed very openly. And then you shared that you were sort of taking a different path with your daughter. I think there's so much strength in recognizing those generational paradigms that we want to reevaluate for the future generations that we raise. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So my parents, very supportive. Off afforded my brother and I have a younger brother every opportunity under the sun. Like they worked they were those parents in that generation. Like corporate job, boom, have the kids. Kids are active, they're healthy, they're doing what they need to do. Here's all the opportunities. But as far as being able to openly discuss our emotions, it just wasn't something that was there. My mom can tend to be a very emotional person, and my dad's the complete opposite. So having the two polar opposites in the household, there was no like ever finding that middle ground where I could be or say, "Hey, I'm feeling like bop 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 bop," without it being met with a problem-solving attitude. Instead of just hearing what I'm saying, it was an automatic, "Okay, we need to solve the problem. This is the problem. This is how we solve it." And both my parents are problem solvers, so it just happened that way. Dealing with my daughter now and understanding not having that very open relationship with my mom kind of put a strain on our relationship, probably from the ages of, I don't know, I was a deviant child, so like 15 to about like 23. I just, you couldn't tell me anything and I wouldn't listen. So, but it came from just from her mom and my dad's mom, very much of, okay, this is how a lady's supposed to act. We do this. We wear pantyhose when we go to church. We wear gloves. And man, when I tell you, like, it just it didn't resonate with me. I didn't understand why. So now having my daughter, there's still those certain things that you need to instill in your kids to make sure that they grow up to be good people. But how I go about whether it's disciplining or having those conversations is night and day from my parents. So my daughter feels very comfortable with coming to me about anything and everything under the sun. Sometimes I'm like, please don't bring this to me because it's just TMI. But you don't want to shut the door. So the fact that she is that comfortable to come to me and say these things is amazing. I think my parents watching me do that with my daughter has made them also more open and receptive to me as an adult coming to them and telling them how I might feel about something, or even my daughter coming to her grandparents and be like, "Grandma and Granddad, I'm feeling this," and they're instead of it being a problem solving thing, it's a listen. It's a okay, well, Do you want my opinion? Do you want to talk through it? Whatever else. It's just a more gentler approach. So breaking that generational, I won't say, we won't call it trauma, just generational
Pattern. Yeah.
pattern. There you go. Generational pattern is huge. And I'm hoping that if my daughter decides to have kids, that she'll continue to keep that open door policy, and just no matter what it is, and I tell her, I might be angry when you tell me, but just know that you could still come tell me.
Mhm.
Like my response isn't going to be just blank face. Like I will probably feel some type of way about it, but you need to tell me.
Yeah.
So just having that has been tremendous, especially as a single parent. Like I need her to tell me what's going on,
Mhm.
what she's feeling and everything else.
Yeah.
Like so.
But it's so interesting, I think, too, because I think that that openness starts with us. Like, I was having this conversation with one of my guests last week about when my kids see something's wrong with me. I mean, even they're 3 and 4, and they can tell when something's wrong with me, and so they'll say, "Mommy, what's wrong?" And like, if I say to them, I'm fine. Everything's fine, right?
Mhm,
Like they're smart enough to know that I'm not okay, but what they hear in that moment is that mommy doesn't get to say when she's not fine. So
mhm,
why would I get to say when I'm not fine?
mhm.
And so like as hard as it is sometimes, and obviously, you don't go into crazy details and stuff, but like I've learned with time to be like, you know what? Sometimes I'll just tell them like, "Hey, I'm a little overstimulated or I'm a little overtouched or something.
Mhm.
I'm working on it. I'm going to be okay. But yeah,
Right.
mommy's a little bit out of sorts right now." And like just creating that space where they feel like everybody in their lives is able to share,
Mhm.
um, I think is so important. And I was very specific with my husband about that, because he didn't necessarily, his background wasn't as much sharing as well.
Mhm.
And so like for him, I'm like, we got to model that for my son, right?
Yeah.
Because like my son, especially as a little boy, has to know that he can
Mhm.
speak about those kinds of things. So I feel like it all starts with us and how we model those behaviors for them, because they're gonna do what they see.
Right. And I mean, like, I completely agree. And I think I shared with you, like, even past relationships, because it hasn't been common for me to share. Like, I will listen. I'm invested. I am the best listener ever. I will listen to my heart's content, but the opportunity to share it was very challenging for me, and it's still a work in progress. Being a single parent, it's very much like, okay, if something is upsetting me, then for the longest time, I didn't show it. I would never let my daughter see me cry, like, ever. But I understand that that's not good for her. Like, she should absolutely see me cry. She doesn't necessarily know what I'm crying about, but she should see me cry. She should see me angry. The worst, as she will tell you, is when I'm calm angry, and she's like, "Well, we're really done. It's really bad now." But understanding, even with family and interrelationships, like that component needs to be there, and that safe space needs to be there. It's very, I will speak for myself, it is very, very, very challenging for me to accept the safe spaces that have been provided for me. It's like one of the things, like, you dip your toe in, and oh, it's really uncomfortable, but I feel really good sharing, but at the same time I don't know if I like it. So it's been a growing pain for me as well. But just the fact that she is such a sharer, it has really forced me to be like, okay, let me share. Like, let me
Mhm.
tell you what's going on. Let me tell you where my head's at, and how I feel about X, Y, and Z and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like there's so much strength in that. Like I think that emotion and being vulnerable like that, people think of it as like a weakness, but I'm like, gosh, it's so much easier to sit there and be quiet about it,
Hmm.
because you don't know how the person that you're talking to is going to react. I mean, because at the same time, you may not, the person on the other end of the conversation may not have a healthy relationship with themselves or may have other things going on. Like one of my one of my best friends, her thing always, whenever I come to her in that kind of space, she's always like, "Are you solution oriented or do you just want me to listen?"
Right.
And it's like, even with that, not everybody that you're going to talk to is that self-aware, and so you may come to them with a problem or something and they may get defensive. So there's always that chance that it's going to get misinterpreted. So I think to be able to open up and just share that and with somebody is something that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, it is. And it takes a lot of trust just to, understand that when we say as parents, this is a safe space, you can come to me with anything, that we really hold that trust with our kids, because the moment that they come to us with something and we freak out to like the
Hmm.
fullest extent and whatever else, like that shuts that door. And same thing with relationships. So understand, having the trust that when my partner says I can come to them in whatever state I'm in, and tell them that they'll listen and it won't be a fly off the handle or into an argument. Because I think that a lot of people don't speak because they're afraid of what the reaction is or what the outcome might be. So it's like, okay, I've thought of every reaction and outcome in my head, just not going to say anything. And I was like that, like a kid. Like if something happened, my parents would sit across from me and they're like, "So Tiffany, like, tell us what happened." And I'm talking Marilyn, stone face, not a word. I'm dying military silence, nothing. I'm not
Hmm.
giving you anything. And that wasn't good.
Hmm.
It wasn't good.
Yeah. It's interesting too because I feel like it's this sort of balance between like being a safe space for your kids, but at the same time not trying to remove all of the negatives of life because the world will disappoint them.
Hmm.
It just will, right? And sometimes I just have to let them sit in disappointment. Like
Hmm.
I'm not going to be able to solve everything for them in the real world when I'm not standing right next to them.
Right.
So, like my son, one of the examples I always give is, like, I would give him these crackers, and whenever the cracker had a little chip in it, and he would be like, I don't want this one, it's broken. Initially, to avoid the meltdown, I would give him another cracker, but after a certain point, we gotta figure out how to handle this. So
Yep.
then at a certain point, he would be like, it's broken, and I'm like, okay, well, you can have this one or you can have none. And then he'd be like, okay, I'll have this one.
It's that learning and understanding. And the saying, like, it hurts me more than it hurts you. I used to hate that saying when my parents say it. And now having a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this hurts me way more than it's
Yeah.
hurting you right now. Because I can't protect you from it. I like, it's not, you need to learn from this. You need to learn from this experience, or you need to understand, like you said, disappointment. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's parenting. It's
Yeah.
parenting.
I know you're further along on the journey than I am. I think about that a lot with my kids is like, when they're so little like this, you have a large influence over the things that they encounter. And
Mhm.
I just keep thinking about how like the world is going to try to claw away that innocence and try to claw away the joy in them to a certain
Mhm.
extent. I mean, not that the world's all bad. I mean, it's not, but like that they're going to encounter things out there that are gonna try to break their spirit. And it's like, how do you, without making them upset, like how do you prepare them for that? And how do you almost, I want to say like micro dose a little bit of disappointment here and there, just let them sit with it so that when the world inevitably does disappoint them at points, I mean, there are going to be beautiful highs, but there will also be lows. And how do you prepare them for those lows, you know?
Yeah. I think it's just as they experience it. So I totally understand when they're young. Yeah. I mean, I could protect you from almost anything and everything. And my mom definitely took over that role because I wasn't like a very hands-on, overprotective parent, because that's how my mom was. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. Um, But yeah, when they're younger, like, yeah, mom and dad, we got you. Like, we can shield you from everything. But then as they get older, their experiences, from what I'm learning and understanding, are going to be extremely different than ours. The world is different from when we were kids. The same things that we were taught don't necessarily apply in situations like now, where they have easy access to television, internet, social media, like all of it is just right there. We didn't have that. We play outside. You get in an argument with somebody, you settle it on this in the sandbox and call it a day. Next day we're best friends again. This is just so much more. And it's the group chats. I mean, listening to her in 20 different group chats, I'm like, who are you talking to?
Mhm.
Well, it's this group and this group and this group, and we're all in a group chat together. We're talking about the situation at school. So my biggest thing for her was like, don't be the instigator. Keep your nose clean. And just, your school is a job. Go and do your job. Your
Mhm.
job is to get good grades and make sure that you're doing what you need to do and make it home safely. Um, but as she experiences the world, again, keeping that safe space and allowing her to come in, and even if it takes 20 minutes for her to tell me the gossip of the story because it takes 20 different legs to get to the final point, being patient and understanding and hearing that sets the tone for like, okay, like I can come to mom and dad about anything and everything on the sudden they're going to listen. It's not going to be a rushed experience. It's not going to be okay, can you just get to the point, or what's the actual problem? And then as they go through more things, it is very much like, okay, so how your friend says it, like, are we problem solving or do you want me to listen?
Mhm.
And my parents do that now. I'll be like, Mom, Dad, like, this is happening, but they'll be like, okay, so are we problem solving or you just like just want to get off your chest? I'll be like, I'm gonna need y'all to help me think this one through.
Yeah.
But it takes time to cultivate that space. And as our kids grow up, just being aware and just trying to stay with the times of understanding what they're experiencing, because her high school experience is night and day from my high school experience.
Yeah.
So there's things she says like they can't use certain bathrooms because kids are vandalizing them. I'm just like, I never had that in high school. If I needed to go to the bathroom, I get the hall pass and you go.
Yeah.
So just kind of understanding how that experience is now shaping her into an adult
Yeah.
as well. It's interesting, but you got it. You got it.
Yeah. I think what gives me hope is that in today's society, there are organizations like Keepers of Khora for those people who might not have a parent like you who is open to discussing and open, like there are kids out there right now who are in that reality of
Mhm.
they don't have a space where they can share and they're bottling it up and bottling it up, right? It's like as they grow, that baggage doesn't get any lighter. And so, it gives me hope that there are people like you guys out there creating these organizations that in times past, I think a lot of this stuff just got swept under the rug.
Mhm.
And these people, if they didn't have a space at home to be able to talk about it, they just get lost.
Mhm.
And so I think that's tremendous and so powerful what you guys are doing with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely, I mean, there's so many different avenues and people that we want to connect with or have the opportunity to connect with. So, yeah, you have men, you have women, you have kids, you have we did a service for the homeless shelter in Loudoun County. So we cooked for them and we served. So stuff simple as that, just being able to have people know that we're there for them whenever they need us is the biggest thing. So yeah, the kids, those are going to be challenging. I feel like kids are a little bit more challenging than adults because adults can kind of articulate what they're feeling or compare it to past experiences. Kids, you only know what you know and you don't
Mhm.
know what you don't know. So if those feelings are new, it's like, I don't understand. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to feel about this? So I think when we step into that space where we're able to start working with kids, whether it's through experiences like summer camps and stuff like that, where again, it doesn't feel like a sit down with a therapy session like, okay, guys, we're going to talk about our feelings today. So, no, get you active, get you comfortable with your surrounding, with the people that are in here with you in your community. And let's just have a conversation. Like,
Yeah.
tell us what you experienced in school. How are you maneuvering with that type of thing, and just kind of understand. That's the biggest thing. That's the last part of Keepers of Core is to be understood. So we hear you, we see you. Now it's time for us to understand you and how and why. And that's where like a lot of my intelligence studies come in because I'm always fascinated by the how and the why.
Mhm.
So the understanding part really sits with us and it helps us cultivate better and newer spaces and different spaces for people to experience these things. So if somebody comes in and they're like, hey, in this space, I love the event, I love the experience, but I'll say like as a veteran, I don't necessarily like to be around guns.
Mhm.
So, okay, we take that into account. So when we host a veterans event, it might not be something centered around firearms. It might be something centered around, a day trip out to a cabin.
Mhm.
Something like that where people still have an experience and they're able to connect.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I'm so excited to see what events you guys have coming up and hopefully participate in your women's event. And I wanted to thank you so much for your time today. And I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Marilyn, so much for having me. I was so excited. Like, so, this is amazing. Like anything that you need, like I'm here for it. What you're doing is incredible, and keep following your passion. Pivot, pivot, pivot. Keep following your passion.
Will do. Thank you. Thank
Fair.
you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.